Alrighty, this is Practice Underwater, and I am back with my co-host, Dr. Macarino, and this is an interesting episode today. So we are doing the question and answer segment on ownership topics. How's it going, Matt?
It's good, George. I find myself sometimes envious of you in your situation, but this is one where I don't envy you at all because I'm seeing the messages and the questions you get inundated with. It's a lot.
Yeah, people wonder why so I used to talk about on air how I help people out. And our podcast has grown tenfold. Literally, I'm not kidding. Tenfold since I started with Richard. And so imagine the number of emails come in have gone up like 20-fold. And so, I get an email with like 10 or 15 very long questions. And I used to respond to those because I'd get like one every few days. Now I get a few a day. And the task of responding to those emails is a surmounting task that at this point I just can't do. And so what we've done is I have my personal assistant go through them. She compiles all of the questions and we go through them and we select the best ones and they make it on this segment. And so Tyler and I recorded for the pre-ownership show, TPO, the Pursuit of Ownership, or as Tyler's taking possession of the show, or I'm starting to call it Tyler's Pursuit of Ownership, and TPO. And but anyway, long story short, these segments are essential for us to be able to address those questions that we get a lot. So our audience has the answers, at the same time being mindful of the fact that I can't spend 2 hours a day fielding emails. And I hope everyone understands that. I'm trying not to be insensitive or rude. Just it's a lot. And
yeah. So we'll do these types of shows periodically, as we get more. And also an opportunity that, George and I love doing these Q&A type video calls for dental schools or,
yes,
residencies, or like that's a great format for us to answer these questions in that people can get a lot of value out of. So if you ever, you're in dental school or whatever, and you want to shoot us an email about getting that set up, we're totally both open to that.
And then we have 7 questions selected. We had like 50 that we were kind of, pursing through. So if yours didn't make the list, I apologize. Don't keep sending it, but it might make a future episode. We'll see.
Yeah. So we siphoned off all the pre-ownership questions that George covered with Tyler already. So we'll dive into it. I wanted to read the first names. George says I'm not allowed to. So this is
Practice Underwater. It's always anonymous.
All right, fine.
That's the thing.
So George, I'm curious if you can explain to me why you consider yourself a lazy dentist and what this looks like as a daily workflow, patient-wise, caseload-wise, and compensation-wise.
Oh, compensation-wise.
Yeah. How much do you make, George? Put it on air.
Yeah, let's definitely talk about that. So Matt talks about how much he makes, or he has in the past. And I personally don't feel like it serves people for me to do that. And so that's why I choose not to. And plus, there's just a privacy component too. I don't want that published. Mm-hmm. So I will probably never address that topic. Got a nice motorcycle going on at the back of Matt's house.
I know. This is the New York street noise. It's very, people like it. I've gotten some feedback on it.
Is it positive feedback? Really?
I'm
think
lying.
You're just recording in an apartment in Brooklyn or something.
I think it adds a little charm, a little big city charm.
Yeah, just you. Yeah. Anyway, so, I probably will never talk about how much I make. But anyway, I want to talk about the lazy dentist thing because a lot of people think it is who I am, but they also think it's not replicatable in their situation. And I think there's a lot to be learned from the lazy dentist lifestyle. I'll call it lifestyle. And the idea behind the lifestyle is I challenge every single thing in the office that I don't have to do. So if somebody's trying to make me do something, instead of just doing it, the first thing I do is challenge, do I really have to do this? And I live my life with that at the forefront of my mind in the office. And you could say, wow, that's like super stubborn and lazy. Yes, it is. That is just how I am as a person. And so it transfers very well for me just being that same way in the office. So for example, my assistant comes and says, hi, I have my patient. It's always their patient. They never call it my patient. They always call it their patient. So their patient in room 2 needs to get numb. And I look at the first thing I do is I click open the schedule and I look at all 4 of my hygienists. And if any of them are available, I'll ask, can you have blank get them numb? And I'm not perfect about it, but I try to do that most of the time. And the reason is because I want them to get in the habit of thinking about what are the things that I have to do versus what are the things that somebody else on our team could accomplish for the practice. And so now they'll come and get me and they'll say, I have my patient in room 2 needs to get numb. No hygienists are available. Can you come get them numb, please? And they know that for me to get out of my desk, it's a task, and there's a lot of times they come get me and I forget and I don't even go. And then they come back, give me 10 minutes later, like, I asked you to come to my room like 10 minutes ago, your patient's waiting. I'm like, oh crap, sorry, fine. Whoops. And I get up and go, but it is that relentless pursuit of delegating as much as possible, where I call it the lazy dentist. And it's that desire to have your practice run as smoothly as possible without you. And that's really how I practice. And so that looks like on a day-to-day basis is me walking into my office. So I got my current associate 4 months ago. This is April 1st. So she started at the beginning of December. And within 2 weeks, I saw that she was diagnosing more than me in exams, and she was converting more treatment than me during exams. And I've worked with 5 dentists, and this is the first dentist that's ever outperformed me in exams. So don't think I'm a slouch. I actually do exams pretty well. She just is way better. And so I made that decision early on that we had 3 assistants. I worked with 2 out of 2 columns, and she worked with 1 out of 1 column, because that's usually how I'll start an associate. And I very quickly made the decision to give her the majority of the exams in our practice, give her that second assistant, and me go back to 1 assistant, 1 column by myself out of 1 chair, because for our practice, that was what was best because of her performance in exams. So now at this point, I have my EFTA, my expanded function assistant, and we see patients out of 1 column. It looks like that's going to become 2 assistants. Again, it looks like we're hiring a 4th assistant, and then we'll each have 2. But I definitely have taken a step back to allow my associate to flourish. And yeah, I do about 25% of my practice is production. So my practice this year was on track for, and I actually on track for, not like fake on track for 2 million. And I was going to produce between 400,000 to 500,000 of that 2 million. And then the rest was associate and hygienists. And so that's what the lazy dentist looks like. It's somebody who works. I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but realistically, I work 18 to 20 hours a week. So I very rarely will work the full day. I'll usually either take the half day or a couple hours off, either in the morning, afternoon. I usually always take a long lunch. And so this is sort of that lazy dentist mentality of, a 2-hour lunch for me is very standard. Typically anything less is, I'm pretty upset about it. And as I get to the office as late as possible, I leave the office as early as possible. And this is not like ideal practices, right? I'm not talking about what is best. I very clearly know that I'm taking an income hit to practice that way. But I've also set up my practice. It's funny, I don't talk about it enough. We're creating a report for our clients, and Aaron was using my practice as the guinea pig for the report, and my overhead numbers are in there. And he's like, your practice is a lot more profitable than you lead on. And I'm like, yeah, it is. But for me to practice this way, it has to be, because I have to have my stuff in check for me to be able to not produce a whole lot. It's easy to outproduce your problems. So for me, when I look at my practice, we've doubled in size since I bought it without me producing. That makes it, in my mind, so much more impressive. When somebody can just produce their practice to growth, that's not that hard compared to actually creating growth in your practice systems, your staff, your leadership, everything that actually takes to grow a practice more passively. And so, yeah, I mean, it takes me being very, very advanced in other areas where I can slack off clinically. And in general, I typically delegate as much of a clinical procedure as I legally can. And so I have great staff who perform very high quality work, and we have, very strict systems, and we do things the very same way every time, so that I can do that, and we can have, things done the same way every time, and I don't have to be involved in as much of the process. So I think that's kind of, Matt, do you have any questions, thoughts?
I got 2 thoughts. I want to challenge this lazy dentist idea, because I think it's better to reframe it as you focus on your unique abilities, like your ability to, manage the practice, look at metrics, deal with staff issues that come up. Like, you're focusing on what only you can do the best, and whatever everyone else can do just as good as you is what you delegate. So I don't see it as like you're a lazy dentist. That's not how I take it. I take it like you're ultra disciplined in focusing on what you do best. And I think that's important for people to kind of reframe that.
That is a good point, because I think I can see how the lazy dentist thing can be taken out of context.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I the reason why I'm very critical about it is I just don't enjoy doing a lot of that stuff. So I kind of call it laziness, but in fact, in pretty much everything I do, I'm always challenging, is this the best use of my time and my abilities? And Tyler Tolbert, he's the only one that has seen me, of the SP guys, has seen me operate in practice. And he made the comment, he goes, with all this free time of you sitting here at your desk, you must have a lot of time to think about the practice. And for me, that's the thing it really gives me, is by the over delegation, or the extreme delegation of which I like to live my life, gives me a lot of space, freedom, and clarity, where I feel my best abilities are heightened, because I have the space and the time to really make tactical decisions, think about the visions, futures, strategies, and problem solving, where I feel like, I do well and excel. And a lot of skill is required in setting up an office where the owner can be that passive. I think I want that to be emphasized, because it's not, you can't just, I couldn't just start this way. I started as the producer, and I have tapered off as my practice has got more dialed in.
And I want to point out how this works for me in a solo office, because I don't have FDAs and I work, probably 35, 40 hours a week in the practice. But I've taken
you feel
a lot.
like it could also, there's a lot to be taken from it, correct?
Oh yeah. So I'm going to talk about kind of how I've used this. So I delegate all that I can now to assistants. I have my extra hygienist constantly getting my patients numb. I spend most of my time now at the front desk, like implementing front desk systems, because we've had a lot of breakdowns with AR and with collections and with treatment presentation. So that's like, if you saw me in my office, it'd be a lot more time up front training my 2 front desk people than it would be in the back. So like, even as a solo, you're able to take some of these things that George is doing and like implement it. And my days are so much more enjoyable now. Like, it's literally night and day how much more I enjoy being at the office when I don't have to run around the back constantly, which what it was for probably over a year.
And we get a lot of the times where, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was with Clay, our intern, and we were at a bar talking to this other dentist, and we were trying to showing him different ways where he could grow his practice. And he's like, I'm happy with how much I make. I don't want to work harder and make more. And I think there's this common thing of people are like, man, I'm running around all day. I can't fathom the idea of running around all day even more to make more money. And the reality is that's not the way it goes. I think adopting that lazy dentist mentality has probably shown you, Matt, that you can expand your capacity past what you thought while not working with more ease. I think that ease is very important. And it should feel easy. It should not feel like you're pushing all the time.
For sure. And literally transformed my practice experience. So very much appreciative of you, George.
Wow. I think that's the first time I've heard that it has transformed your practice experience.
Yeah. I thought I've said that. Yeah, it definitely has.
Well, I'm gonna echo something back to you then. I've never told you this either, but maybe I've talked about it before. I've given you that, right? The growth through delegation. You've given me the ability to sit in, not let, whatever a patient says about something I recommend or a treatment that doesn't go my way impact my feelings about myself, and be confident in that. To me, that has really transformed the ease at which I practice. And that's something I got from you. So I really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, let's get another one. So this one's asking about our direct mail magazine. Are you seeing enough decent leads from your direct mail magazine, or are you now doing anything else that's providing good leads and that can replace Driven or any alternative providers?
So I cut my marketing budget in half. The way I did that was cutting all marketing out of my budget that was not the magazine. So yeah, that thing works better than anything else I've ever tried. It's not even close. And so the way the tracking of it is difficult, because I feel in general marketing tracking is, I don't want to call it bullshit, but one step below bullshit is you can never successfully track it, because they're becoming aware of you, and then they Google you, and then they find you. So the way we track it is I look at 2 metrics. I look at the new patient pre-appointment rate. So how many of our new patients are committing to our practice long-term by making their next appointment? And what is our average treatment accepted per new patient exam? So those are the 2 indicators that I look at for new patient flow.
So that quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity. Exactly. Quantity is easy. Everyone knows how many new patients they're getting. And so we get between 50 or 60 a month. The thing that this has changed in my practice is we went from the 50th percentile for new patients pre-appointing to the 90th percentile. And that's not my team is not doing much differently. It's just our marketing is different. The patient we're getting is much different. And then the treatment plan, the accepted amount of treatment is much higher. So they're coming in pre-decided that we are their dentist. That's what the magazine really offers. It's not, and so you can track the results because I can compare last year, this month to this year, this month, and see totally different results when I was doing different marketing. But the whole call tracking number, all the patients being, I think that's really appealing to a dentist's desire to have control and certainty over the whole process and not trusting the fact that this really high quality marketing is attracting really high quality people. And I think at the end of the day with marketing, you're always going to be holding yourself back if you need to see the like dollar for dollar ROI very clearly and you don't have some sort of back end way of measuring that. So we went from diagnosing less than 50K on new patients to 150K on new patients a month. So for me, I'm looking at my new patient diagnosis, 150K a month of diagnosis. We're accepting, 40 to 50K of treatment off of those new patients. And my marketing budget is, 8 to 9 grand of magazines a month. So
and that's an important point because we see guests all the time on Practice Underwater who, get a healthy amount of new patients and then half of them or sometimes more are not pre-appointing. So they're not even getting that. They're getting half of the number they're looking at. So they're really looking at the wrong numbers. They're looking at the quantity. I mean, that's just like the gold standard number everyone just looks at. But I use this magazine now in my practice. I started it right before this whole COVID thing. So obviously I paused it, but I'm excited to get back in and see what kind of results I get.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so when we've kind of looked at our data, we've realized the quality of the new patient is so much more important than the quantity. And dentists are so quantity of new patient driven, but the higher quality that patient, they're consuming that chair time, the more revenue in that hour and a half you're going to get to your practice. When you look at the analytics behind it, it's very clearly the way to go.
Yeah. And this fits right into my bias of whatever everyone's looking at, you probably should look at a different thing.
Yeah. So everyone's racing towards the bottom. It was a $99 patient special. Then we did 89, but someone in my area was doing 49. So they were getting all those new patients because he undercut me by $40 for that cleaning. And it's like, maybe I don't want that patient that's going to run to the cheapest cleaning that they can get in the area. That's maybe not the person I want to attract.
Are you a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan?
No. What is that?
Oh, so Larry David opens a Spite coffee shop next to this Mocha Joe's, his guy he really hates, and they just constantly fight over like the lowest coffee offer they can give. They have signs where they like cross off 110 and make it 99 cents. Just this back and forth. But anyways, I digress. So next one, this listener is wondering who manages your in-house membership plan, I believe. Yeah.
This is a good topic. So if you haven't heard the pursuit of ownership question and answer, I might repeat some things I said there. Matt, before we begin, do you have an in-office plan?
Yeah, I do.
Do you guys manage it with a third party or yourselves?
No, I never understood the need for the third party. This is one like really thing in dentistry doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we don't do monthly payments with it. It's $399 for a normal patient and $549, I believe, for a perio patient. You bill them once a year, and that's it. I mean, it's very easy to track. You label them on Open Dental, and it seems very simple, and it's a no-brainer, honestly, for me to have one.
Yeah, and so I also manage it in-house. I'm also I think we're both a little confused, and I'm not saying that the need for the managed software doesn't offer anything. Every time I've looked at one of those products, the price behind it and the recurring fees and everything, it just sort of makes me wonder, do I really need this item in my practice? And so I'll offer a tidbit though. The monthly, switching to monthly, your plan retention is much higher than annual.
I don't get it though. I've never had someone really scoff at that price, because if they're taking this deal, it's half off like what their fee would be normally without it. I don't know. I've never gotten pushback on that.
In general, it's kind of it's just the general like all consumer things. Annual services have lower retention than monthly services because you're getting them locked in for a year, but then after the year you have to keep renewing them. But either way, I mean, you have it on auto pay for them after a year anyway, right?
Right.
So you're getting the same benefit. I wouldn't even touch it.
Yeah.
But so I want to go on a rant about these things because everyone markets them as like this way of becoming less insurance dependent and this way of just revolutionizing your practice with these membership plans. I think that's total BS. And it's a flavor. It's like the 10-20% thing that's going to not even improve your practice by 10% would be such an overestimation of the effect of a plan like this. It's just something nice to offer your patients. You're going to have some patients that would have paid more that you're now accepting less for, but you have better retention. Honestly, it's barely more than a wash. I don't think this is this is not grow your practice through a membership plan is a load. That is not my personal view, obviously, but it's my least profitable patient. I would much rather have a patient on dental insurance than I would have one of these patients on a membership plan. But if a patient doesn't have insurance, we offer the plan. Cool. But it's a very background thing. I don't think about it. I don't worry about it. I don't focus on it. It's not a huge part of my practice. And I don't recommend making it a big part of your practice because it's an uphill battle. I mean, they're paying entirely for their preventative, and then they have to pay entirely for all of their work. And you're offering a discount, sure, but I don't know. I don't see it's not as revolutionary as people describe it.
No, it definitely isn't. I'm with you. All right, next one. If you had a tagline, George, what would it say?
Tagline. Oh gosh. Well, I mean, whatever you think is best is my tagline from my team's perspective. But in life, man, I don't know. That's tough. I think whatever you think is best would probably be my tagline.
Yeah. My personal one is always like, I'm gonna figure it out. Like whenever it comes up, I'm gonna figure it out. Like,
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
The other one I hold on to is I always tell myself, trust the process, not the result.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times I feel like I have to tell. So I work with your wife on life coaching, and Ellen, she's been on the show now, so I can talk about her. And she always talks about how I coach myself through my life. You know, I do this thing where I coach myself because I'm a coach and I've received a lot of coaching. So I coach myself through situations in my life. And one thing I'm like always telling myself is I'll look at a situation that potentially could be upsetting to me and I analyze how was my process. And I kind of stop looking at the result and I look at my process. And if I'm like, okay, if I would do this whole thing again and I liked my process, then I say, okay, trust the process, not the result, and keep moving forward. And that slogan really transfers to the rest of my life. The other one I would say, my favorite quote of all time is success is not an accident. I love that so much. It's so profound to me. And I'm going to go on a rant. Is that okay, Matt?
Go for it.
This is a Q&A. This whole thing is a rant. So there's this video on the internet. If you Google success is not or search on YouTube, success is not an accident, Steph Curry. And it's this guy, and he was at the Kobe Bryant Skills Academy in 2007 with Steph Curry. And there's all these players that are, you know, I mean, be frank, they're very athletic, super strong guys. And Steph is like this little tiny dude who's pretty scrawny. And he's like, at the camp, Steph was the most impressive, not because of his physique or his skill, or it was his skill and his habits. And he was, you know, super diligent about his work habits. He wouldn't stop shooting until he swished 5 free throws in a row. And it's this whole thing of success is not an accident, it's a choice. And Steph made the choice to have exceptional habits, which is leading to being successful. And so when I look at someone like Tyler Tolbert is the person that I think of, because our intern, he has made the choice to be successful in every decision that he makes throughout dental school. And I always tell him, you're going to be successful. That is a fact. And he always is resistant to that because it hasn't happened yet. But at the end of the day, success is not an accident, it's a choice. And by doing things leading towards success, you are making the choice to be successful. And I always look at my life and what do I want and what am I doing today that's leading to what I want tomorrow. And I'm making the choice to have that. It's just not here yet, but I am actively working on it today by making that choice. So I think those would be some things that stick out to me about personal taglines or things that hold me or keep me going.
Yeah, it's like success is a byproduct of everything that happens when no one's watching. Like when you're putting in the work, the process is what breeds it, and the results are just what everyone sees. So I
would say D1, 2, and 3 are where I learned pretty much everything that I talk about on air. Nobody knew me
Yeah.
back
I
then.
mean, I remember your posts on Dental Town in D1, and
Yeah.
you learned a lot in that time. Okay. So this is a more dental office question. Walk me through your patient experience.
I love this. I love this because I want to show people how this is an area that I think dentists spend way too much time and energy on. Personally, I think there's a satisfactory level of experience and there's a point of diminishing returns. And patient walks into my office, it probably smells like a dental office. They sign in on a notepad. We now have somebody who greets them, but we used to not have somebody who'd greet them. We have our Keurig and our
They sign on a notepad?
yeah, they sign in.
Ugh, that screams like medical office.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
Oh, I hate that.
So
Continue.
sometimes if we know who they are, we'll say, "Oh, you don't need to sign in. We're checking you in." But other times, if we don't know who they are, they need to sign in so we can see their name and then know which appointment. We got 8 people coming at once sometimes.
Well, you gotta look at their age, if you remember, like you gotta just guess.
Yeah, they sign in on the pad, man. Sign in on the pad.
Oh, no. All right, continue. Then I'll talk about mine. That's awful. I'm not coming to your office, man.
Good. I don't want you. You seem like a typical patient.
I would be.
So we got the Keurig. That's a new amenity. We have the water
Wow.
bottles. They have half-size water bottles, not full size. And then we got some magazines in the waiting room. You get called back. I don't know what else happens until you see me. And then I come in. I make a quick joke. Once I get the patient to laugh, I'm done talking to them about things that are not their teeth. Then I'll ask them, any concerns with your teeth at all? This is even a new patient exam, current patient exam. What's bringing you in today? If it's a new patient, my exams are very quick. I'm in and out. I'm always asking my hygienist what's going on. And, but from the patient's perspective, they've had probably a regular cleaning. I don't harp on a whole lot of what happens, except for the fact that anytime treatment is needed to be discussed, it's an intro photo is taken, it's talked about with the patient, and it's put up on the monitor. And then my exam slip is filled out so I know what happened in that conversation. But that's really the only thing I harp on about the new patient experience with a cleaning is that conversation about treatment is had, that they've had a good time. And right, what is my way of auditing this mechanism? Because it's obviously very important. I'm not denying the importance of the new patient experience. From my perspective, my practice reappoints in the 90th percentile, and we get a ton of Google reviews. So as far as I'm concerned, the data is telling me my new patient experience is sufficient. And so the level of effort it would take for me to make that even better is more than I feel I would get a benefit from. My case acceptance is fine. I'm having a hard time seeing where improving that would really benefit me.
I mean, the only thing I see is that sign-in sheet. That's just terrible. But no, I mean, for me, I don't want any conflict with the person to arise when they're in the office. Like no negative feelings should be coming from them in leaving the office, other than maybe like the guilt of having a cavity they didn't think they had, something like that.
Yeah.
But like there should be no conflict with any staff at any point in their visit. And like George said, like the amenities, they're not really necessary. Like most of these people have had cleanings before. They know what it's like to be at a dental office. So their baseline is very low for what they're expecting. So any like little thing is going to be probably enough. Like, wow, a Keurig. Oh man, that's amazing. So like, the whole blankets, Netflix, and, we do these things. I have paraffin wax, like, all that stuff, Bose headphones, all that crap. But like, it doesn't really add much. I mean, I've never had a review mention one of those things. So
it's funny. I used to be on the Dental Clinical Pearls email list, the insider group, as it was called.
Dr. What is he? The helpful dentist?
Yeah, the helpful dentist. I won't call out his real name. Greg Charles is his fake name, and I got this email one time from him, and this intricate process about how he does his disposable warm scented towels for his patients.
Oh, I do love those though. I forgot to mention towels. They're great.
Really?
That's one thing I really like. Yeah, like after an impression or something, or like a treatment that you give them the warm towel, or you wipe it on the face after an extraction. Yeah, we do that. And I really like that one.
I was about to rip him for this.
Oh no, it's really good. You should do it.
Really?
They love it. It's like you're at a first class airline, and like they give you that warm towel, and you're like, ooh, that's kind of nice. And it's scented.
Are they disposable? Do you throw them away?
Yeah, they're disposable. You have a little machine.
They're putting blood all over it and stuff.
No, you have a machine that warms them up. They're individually packaged. Take one out after extraction, wipe them up. My assistant does a great job. It's like that's a good one. I like that.
Well, he does it for every patient, every cleaning, every appointment.
That's a little overkill, but like For a restorative extraction impression, anything like near the face, yeah, it's nice.
Wow.
Yeah,
Matt, I would grade my experience as a solid B. Matt's operating in the A minus range.
yeah,
That's solid. I mean, I, I personally, right, this is just my personality type of am I getting the results I'm wanting? Yes. Then I'm not going to touch it.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely not necessary, right? It's not going to change anything for you. You're not going to see a metric change because of this, but it's a nice offering. I think you should look into it.
The warm scented towels.
Yeah,
Anything else on my experience you would critique? Do I need the Bose headphones with the Netflix?
definitely don't need that. I mean, it's helpful for kids, like really good for kids. I mean, you have music playing, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we have a Spotify playlist.
Okay, gotta have music on.
Actually, we have a lot of compliments on our. So how did you? Let me guess. You picked all the songs on your playlist.
Absolutely. That music, as I say, is for me. Like in the back, so we have different zones, right? The music in the back is my music. That's for myself, and I tell people that very open. Like, if you don't like this music, sorry, it's not for you. It's for me, because I can't. This is the one thing I care about in the office, and I tell my staff this: if there is not music playing, that's the one thing I will like raise my voice about. Like, where the hell is the music? Like that silent dental office where you can only hear your thoughts. Like, no, that's not happening in my office.
Wait, are you EDM or Matt's a big electric dance music fan?
So I would love to put on EDM, but it's more like soft EDM, like poppy EDM, kind of like Marshmello, that kind of like vibe. So It's like I can kind of get away with it. Back in residency, I would put on like EDM hard mixes in my operatory and just literally wouldn't care.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So Matt, if you had to guess how we select the playlist for my office, how would you say it's done?
The staff does it. They figure it out.
Yep. So everyone on the staff picked like 4 or 5 of their favorite songs, and that's our playlist. And I have selected none of the songs.
Oh, and I'm also big on TV needs to be playing something enjoyable. Definitely not news. Definitely not. Like HGTV, that kind of vibe with no sound, music above it. That's the key vibe right there.
We don't even have cable in our office or Netflix. Wow. I didn't think about that.
In the waiting room, you need something on the TV,
They got magazines.
Magazines? What are we in, 1995?
Everyone's got their smartphone. What I always tell patients is whenever I leave the room, like they always say, don't leave the patient in the room by themselves. Like I leave the patient in the room by themselves all the time. And I'll tell them,
no.
And I tell them all the time, like, you got your phone, entertain yourself. I'll see you when you're numb, and I leave.
No, patient is never left alone, ever.
Why?
I don't believe in that. Like some like younger people, you can tell like they really just want you to leave. Like, 20-year-olds, like I'm on my phone, like don't talk to me. But like those like middle-aged people, they like chatting. Like they're out of the house now.
If this is a chatty patient, the assistant will go in there and chat with them. But some patients, they just want to sit there and chill. I mean, they don't want to
I feel like for me, that's like 10% of people, I think. And
I think we're a solid 50-50.
And I'm not a talker, as people probably know. So I hire people who talk for me. I'm like, your job is to talk to the patient. My job is to do dentistry. So this is why I'm hiring you. Like,
I'm going to get smashed in some of these, it's funny. But I think the point I want to make is we take this part of dentistry way too seriously in my mind. Dentists in general, you really go over the top with the whole thing. I mean, if patients knew how much we thought about this stuff, they would be like, dude.
Well, like Breakaway does a whole like hour, 2 hours on patient experience with the fragrance and the essential oils and like the neck pillows. They do a whole thing on it. So it is like a lot of people talk about it.
No, and I agree. It's important. I think you got to find that happy medium for you though, where it's like the level of effort that is nice, but you're not going over the top unless you're trying to build that over the top practice. But I think I've been very clear about my goals, and so that just the over-the-top patient experience doesn't really fit in. I feel like we have a good to great patient experience, but we don't have like an amazing. They're not leaving our dental office thinking that's the best experience we've ever had. Yeah.
All right, so let's get another one. This one's a little bit more pre-owner question, but I like it anyway. So I got some strong thoughts on it. Should I be worried that there's another dentist in the same town with 30 years of experience? Someone who's looking at buying a practice or starting one. Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I would rather someone who's got 30 years experience. You kidding me? Like he or she's going to retire sooner. He's probably doing a lot of things like how he's done them for 30 years and easy to just bring in like modern dentistry and
back doors wide open.
Yeah.
And I mean, the last thing I want is somebody young next to me.
Yeah. I want someone who named the practice after themselves and it's been there for 30 years. Like that office, I know I can crush them. Just destroy them. So,
I love how you think about that. Like the last thing I think
oh
about
yeah.
is crushing my local competition. I mean,
Oh, I think about that all the time.
yeah, I just really don't care. I guess the way I think about it is the reasons why my practice is doing well are the result of decisions that my local competition would never have the balls to make, to be quite frank. So I have no
Exactly.
fear of them. Yeah, I mean, it just you won't be able to look at things the way I do and make the decisions I make. So you're not going to have what I have, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not like the gonna crush your practice into smithereens. It's like your practice can be there doing the way it's been doing for the last 50 years. And I'm not worried about practices opening up next to me or anything like that. I think there's plenty to go around, and I have great retention, and so yeah, I'm not worried about it at all.
Yeah. I think you're unique in that way because I think a lot of people really like take that and it's like a fear based thing for them. Like what else is going on in town? Who is opening? Like, I mean, more of a concern for a startup, but in your position, like you said, not a big deal.
Yeah, I'm
All
not
right, we
concerned.
got one more. This is more of a personal question for you, George.
Oh, geez.
If you could do just one thing, what would you do? You mentioned not being crazy about being a dentist or coaching. So, what is your favorite thing?
Ooh. So, I have. It's funny. I called this compliment. So, gosh, I don't know if I should say it on air. Um, so I think people know Paul Goodman. He, uh, we won't talk about thoughts about him specifically.
Of course.
His lifestyle is very interesting to me, where he just kind of does whatever, and I call it whatever, and he just makes a good living doing it. And that's sort of I didn't realize it until I started liking doing whatever, but I just like that freedom of not having to do anything and choosing to do whatever I feel like. And for me, that's what people have this misconception that I don't like dentistry. And I actually love dentistry as a profession. I think if I could go over and do it again, I would do it all over again, exactly the way I've done it. I love my field. I love the patients. I just am not crazy about the high stress clinical procedures. And so what I do is I keep my clinical workload very, very light and very simple and straightforward, so that I don't have to have clinical stress. I just really can't stand that clinic. Like people don't like management stress. I don't like clinical stress. That's the thing that grinds my gears more than anything else. And so I just intentionally avoid it. And I do all things in dentistry that are avoiding the clinical stress. I love the management. I love the entrepreneurship. I love the freedom. I love the ability to be my own boss. But so and my obviously clinical stress is part of being a dentist, and growing clinically is part of that. And that I'm not super detail oriented like most dentists are. And so, yeah, am I the like perfect personality fit for a by the chair dentist? No, I'm probably not meant to do that. But being a dentist doesn't mean I have to do that. I get to choose what I do. And I love my staff. I love patients. People don't, that's not talked about enough on the show, is how much I enjoy the relationships with patients that I have. That's a really big part of my life. And yeah, I mean, I remember, it's we have I talked about the game that I played with my hygienist on the air?
Guessing the
Yeah,
details.
yeah.
You might have.
I'm going to quickly talk about it. I have the ability to remember patients, their families, stuff about them, where they went on trip, what we talked about last time I saw them 6 months ago, and my staff. They get really annoyed with me now because we play this game where they'll give me a patient's name and I got to say something about them that's on their chart, their mom, their sister, whoever. And I really enjoy that part of being a dentist. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I was meant to be the chair side, FMR smile design dentist. I just like the simple dentistry, and I like to talk to my patients and have fun with my team and be the entrepreneur. But I like the freedom. I think if I could do one thing, it's have nothing to do so that I could do whatever I want. And yeah, I mean that's sort of my life, and it's pretty awesome, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I'm the exact same way. Like I'm very like cagey about my schedule. I like everything to feel like a choice. Like I've chosen to do that. I have the freedom of time and opportunity that I can choose just to do what I want. I think that's one thing you and I definitely share.
Yeah, it's very interesting how bogged down it can feel sometimes. You build this thing that you want, and then you're like, well, now it's giving me all this work that I don't want to do. And then it's interesting how that works sometimes.
Yeah, I've fallen that many times with tackling a bigger case, and I'm like, well, now this is just something I have to deal with for months, and I'm like, oh, why did I even Why did he even think to do this? It's tough.
Referral.
I know.
Best thing ever. Make
All right.
this headache of a patient in case someone else's problem. Yes, please. Here's a slip.
Yeah. Well, a couple of times it's amounted to, okay, here's a little bit of your money back. Now sign this form, and I'm not seeing you again.
Yeah, that's nice too.
Not great. Anyways, anything else, George? That's all the questions I had. Some
Okay.
good ones in there.
Yeah, I think in general, just I guess I want to end on this point that if you notice, I don't know, I feel like we have this no bullshit kind of easy dentistry approach that people, but we're not that way about everything. We're that way about things that when we look at the data show that it's not important. If you're performing adequately in a specific area, we don't feel it's worth your time to perform way better than adequate in that same area, instead of it's like making your strength way, way stronger when you should just focus on other areas. So we are really harp on, there are things in my practice that I really harp on and I'm really big on. It's just not the things that other people are big on. And what I think anytime you look at analytics, and we probably sound different than pretty much anybody you've heard talking about this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things that we say that sound pretty abrasive and pretty different. And it's not because we just have this philosophy that we've created. This is stuff that we've learned, mined from, our practice by numbers experiences. We are very data driven in everything we do. And we don't have opinions. We have opinions, but we try to keep them out, and we just learn from facts. And so I hope that we sound like a breath of fresh air, because I feel, quite frankly, that our industry needs it. They need that. Let's focus on, a lot of times it almost feels like dentists try so hard and don't get anywhere because they don't know where to go and they don't know what their practice needs. So they just do everything. And I've had those periods in my life where in my practice, it didn't feel easy because I didn't understand my numbers well enough. And I was a practice by numbers power user before I even started. And even then I didn't understand my analytics well enough to know what I needed. And so I just was working on everything and every little intricacy of the practice. And then when you realize, oh, okay, these are like my really big issues, and you tackle them, you're like, wow, this actually wasn't that hard. And I feel like one of my missions and my purpose and why is to present that ease to dentists and have this feel easier, better results, not work as hard, have an easier life, and have your practice be a part of your life, not your whole life. And that's really, I mean, Matt, do you have any thoughts on that topic?
Well, it's interesting to note. So it's two different things at play. In a dental practice, you want to improve your biggest weaknesses, right? You want to start there and not, like you said, make a strength your strength. I think personal wise, you want to focus on your strength and do things in that area. You don't want to
Yes. Good point.
Yeah, you don't want to really improve your own personal weaknesses, because that's not really going to how you move forward. Mm-hmm. It's going to be what do I do really well? Okay, let me focus on just doing those things, and that's going to push me forward more than improving something that's not you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, Matt, because your practice, you need to address weaknesses. You can't, oh, that's just a weakness of my practice. All right, fun fact, moving on, but that you can't do that with your practice, because that's that's a thing separate than yourself. But with yourself, and this is something that has been a big breakthrough for me, is learning about myself and identifying my strengths and weaknesses. And rather than focusing on my weaknesses, focus on my strengths, and then put support systems in place to prop up my weaknesses so that they're not holding me back, but I'm not changing who I am to improve them either.
Yeah, I'm not just going to become an extrovert. I'm going to put people on my team who are extroverts who can take that role for me and then focus on what I do well. It's two different things at play there. So I think it's an important point.
And for me, I am the extrovert. And so, think about Matt and I's partnership for a minute. We're partners here at Shared Practices, and we have a lot of voids where the other one has solutions. Matt is very detail oriented, very operational execution is what Matt does best. Operational execution is what I don't do best. Vision, innovation, those things, that's where I really excel. And our business needs both, but we don't have to supply things that we do not naturally do well. And I think trying to change who you naturally are is a much more difficult thing than putting a support system in place. And so Matt in shared practices is that person for me, and my office manager is that person for me in my practice. My personal assistant is that person for me in my life. And, in my ex-wife is that way with our kids. So in every part of my life, I have that person who kind of keeps it all together, because I'm just not the person that does that. And I think that's okay to acknowledge and just be who you are, but still ensure that those things are getting what they need.
Yeah, that's a really cool realization. I love like you said, the support structures. I think that's the key part to that. It's like putting those in place in all areas of your life, which you've done, which is really cool.
It's like, imagine somebody missing their right leg, but they still need to stand up straight. So you have to like slide in like a little stool underneath them so that they still have that support structure, but they're just not growing a leg where they don't have one. Everyone is missing certain parts. Nobody is like perfect in every way. Well, that's what makes us all perfect, I guess. But, you need to put support systems in place to support those areas for you. And, Matt, if you're really good operationally, having mentorship, guidance, coaching for vision, is important. And so that's an area where I don't necessarily need as much help, but I need help on the executional side. So I think it's just identifying that about yourself, but understanding that your practice is a totally separate thing. You can't just have like this weakness in your practice. This is just who I am, so my practice just doesn't retain patients. Like that's not the same thing.
No, definitely not. All right, well that was all good, George. A lot of wisdom you just shared there. So it was a fun little back and forth.
Yeah, and I think it's cool. It's I've very much grown up on the show. I'm coming up on 3 years now since I took over.
We forget George is 26 years old. You've been 26 for like 10 years.
I have been 26 for my birthday is this month. Actually, it's coming up.
Okay, finally. Gosh.
So probably by the time this airs, I'm 27. Because we've banked a lot
of
content.
Is it April
20th, 4/20.
Okay.
So anyway, I started this with Richard when I was, a third-year dental student. That was 3 years ago, and I've changed a lot as a person. I've changed a lot as a dentist. I've changed a lot as a practice owner in every way. And it's kind of weird to have these snippets of my mindsets on air, recorded and timestamped. But I hope that somebody who's followed me along the whole way has sort of seen and watched that growth, because I think it's cool. And for me, the major area of growth has been learning more about myself and relentlessly being that person as much as I can. And I think for me, that was a major breakthrough. And we just talked about it right now, but I think it comes up in other parts of the show as well.
Nice. All right. Well, that was fun. We'll see everyone next week. We'll have a regular show on next Friday with another anonymous guest.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.